Is former Trump campaign foreign policy advisor Walid Phares. Walid, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So let's kick it off right first with the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, who will be at the White House today. President Trump is going to be pushing that the UAE do more in the war on terror, we assume. But what else is going to be on the docket for these two leaders today?
Well, the visit of Sheikh Mohammed of the UAE is extremely important in my view. First of all, because the UAE have developed over the past few years a very important strategy to counter terrorism. They are active not just in the UAE against cells, but also in Yemen. They are backing other countries. Second, I've looked at their counter-extremist programs. I mean, they're working on the ideological warfare. This is very, very advanced. And third, the most important point is that the UAE have been very discreetly working on putting together this coalition of Arab moderates that would include the Saudis, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, and others. So starting the week, a week that's going to end up in the Middle East and beyond with this meeting is strategic.
Yeah, and you know, we've heard positive commentary out of Middle Eastern leaders about President Trump. Lee Carter, you know, the first couple of weeks when the president took office, it was the King of Saudi Arabia who came out very positive and friendly toward President Trump, even as his critics were you know, criticizing the immigration ban.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see how this is all playing out, because there's this narrative that President Trump is so bad for foreign policy, that all these countries hate us now, that we're all looking at this in disarray, and yet we're having these conversations and we're having a lot of positive dialogue. How do you think that the president can reframe how the world is viewing him on foreign policy, or is this an effort starting this week?
Well, let's remember that all this push against the image of the president was done here and partially in Europe, not in the region. I was following very closely the media and the positions taken in the region. I'm talking about Egypt. I met with many lawmakers when they visited the United States twice with President Sisi. I'm talking about many media in the Arabian Gulf, in Jordan and beyond, and even also in social media. You will see that the image portrayed about the president by part of us here is not exactly what is happening in the region.
That's interesting.
When you look at what the Obama administration did with our relationship with Saudi Arabia and Jordan, who was just staunch allies of ours through history, and really they were frayed at best. Are we looking for a new renaissance in our relationship with the Middle East, our partners?
Yes, the media, they call it bringing back the warmth to the relationships, because they felt that over the past, for each one, 2 years, 3 years, or beyond that, there was a negative between Washington and some of these capitals. I would name Egypt, for example, and Saudi Arabia, maybe less with Jordan. The ambiance was not very good over the past 3 years. Now they feel that there is a change. Of course, they're going to have to sit down with the president. That's why some of the leaders have come, like the leader of Saudi Arabia, King Abdullah of Jordan, and now, of course, the UAE leader, but he's going to go to the region. That would be very interesting, how he's going to address them in the region.
Yeah, and Shelby, he got wide support for the strike against Syria.
He did. He absolutely did. And I also think it's interesting this meeting comes on a day when a court is hearing Donald Trump's travel ban. These courts are some of these cases hinge on the fact that Donald Trump is trying to ban Muslims, and I think this gives him an opportunity to show it's not an anti-Muslim ban. It's not something based on religion. Do you expect anything to come out of this meeting? Any concrete announcements? Any sort of deals being struck here?
Well, of course, you'll have the whole economic, financial aspect, but that is not going to impact the actual issue of the bill. What is going to impact is the statements, by the leader of the UAE. More importantly, when the president will go to Riyadh, he's not going to just meet with the Saudis. He's meeting with actually many Arab and Muslim leaders who are going to come to Saudi Arabia to meet with him. That is basically a game changer in the terms of how to describe this administration. What
about, let's talk about Europe for a moment. Of course, France comes to mind. The recently sworn-in French president, Emmanuel Macron. That was quick. He was sworn in last night. He's expected to meet with German Chancellor Angela Merkel this morning, and then he's going to be meeting with President Trump for lunch in Brussels next week, according to senior officials. What do you expect from these meetings?
Well, first of all, he is appointing a prime minister very, very fast, because he knows that he is on a timetable very tight. His legislative elections are going to be in June. So if he's not successful in June, his whole presidency will be jeopardized. He needs, and he is basically showing international credentials. He's meeting with the German leader, the European leader, and he wants his meeting with President Trump to be successful. He wants to show that he can deal with international politics. He's 39-year-old. So he will try to be very positive in those meetings.
Walid, I also think it's interesting. Donald Trump, I've been talking to investment advisors and to some of these market strategists, and they say they were surprised to hear Donald Trump tweeting about Europe, saying that these are interesting elections, not necessarily endorsing candidates, but cheering on a pretty far-right movement over there. Do you think Macron and Trump will get off on the right foot? Macron is an investment banker, which is something Donald Trump has surrounded himself with, but Donald Trump also did like the appeal of these far-right candidates who were anti-immigrant, who were pretty protectionist in their trade agendas.
And didn't President Obama endorse Macron?
And President Obama did endorse Macron.
Right.
What do you expect from their relationship?
Well, former President Obama endorsed officially. He can do it now as a politician, while the U.S. president did not endorse. He just tweeted, as you just mentioned, because his base prefer the base of Marie Le Pen. However, the current president may find common ground with President Trump because of what you have just mentioned. The economics, the finances, the issue of a similarity between France and American challenges with regard to a variety of international issues. So I think now that Macron has been elected as president, he is going to converge with President Trump to try to find solutions to transatlantic issues.
Let me ask you about the Turkey meeting, because the president of Turkey is calling his visit to the White House this week a new beginning. Is that how you would describe it?
He will have to, and actually it will have to, because there are some issues of tensions between Turkey and the United States with regard to the operations in Syria, with regard to the Kurds, and with regard to a series of other issues. I mean, the United States has questions probably for Turkey with regard to its agreement with Iran and Russia on Syria, and Turkey has many questions with regard to what the United States has in mind with regard to Kurds. So this meeting is important for both sides, and I'm sure President Erdogan will try to, as much as he can, mend the fences and create a new strategy, which he calls a new day.
So Macron is going to meet with Merkel right away, and you got to believe that the negotiations with the United Kingdom and their exit from the EU is going to be just paramount and top of the list. What kind of stance do you expect them to take?
Well, on the one hand, they have a position of principle. They want the European Union. They want to save the remainder of the European Union, if we can put it that way, outside the United Kingdom. But on the other hand, they want to still do business with Britain. This is a power, and they still have with the UK a lot of ties, including NATO, including a lot of issues with counterterrorism. So they will try to find a middle way between criticizing the UK departure on the one hand, but then still working with the UK on many other levels.
Of all these meetings, of all that's happening right now, which do you think are the most important for the president to really stick the landing on?
I think Europe is a classical place. He's going to go. He understands it better, and there will be joint strategies. This is NATO, after all. But his new area is going to the heart of the Arab and Muslim world. I mean, he's going to be going to Riyadh and meeting with all these leaders, then go to Israel after that, talk about the peace process, and end it in Rome and the Vatican. So I think this is really a historic trip, in my view.
Yeah.